Governance and Public Administration Officer from UNDESA. She is going to be the moderator for the whole session. And so I'd like to invite her to the stage so that she can introduce this dynamic session to you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. I think some of you have already left, but let's hope that this session can be quite interactive and hands-on and enjoyable. It's also a moment to share key messages, recommendations, action points from the previous Breakaway group. So today we are very eager to listen to what happened in all of those Breakaway groups. We had 9 parallel groups. And the first part of the session, as Sarah announced, will be reporting back. And each speaker will have 3 minutes to report back on the key messages and recommendations. So I would like to invite to the stage the following speakers. Dr. Lang Xue, Dean of School of Public Policy and Management at Tsinghua University. Mr. Tiokorda Jidebudi Kusuma, Senior Auditor, Specialist on SDGs, the Audit Board of the Republic of Indonesia. Mr. Jvezai Arabun, Acting Director General, Socioeconomic Science and Policy Research Center, the National Institute of Economic Research. Ms. Erice Altea E. Antonio, Head for External Affairs and Collaborations of the 2030 Youth Force, the Philippines. Mr. Redempto Parafina, Executive Director of the Affiliated Network for Social Accountability in East Asia and the Pacific Foundation. Dr. Mohammed Ijas, Management Committee, Colombo Municipal Council, Sri Lanka. Ms. Jennifer Tan, Director, Government Technology Agency, Singapore. Ms. Gurley Grace Casimiro Igdipen, Chief Economic Development Specialist, Social Protection and Integration Division, National Economic and Development Authority, the Philippines. Ms. Erice Altea, I think she has 2 reportings. Yes, please proceed to the stage if you're here and take a seat, yes?
Double click now.
Yes, please. I think it's nice to meet you, rapporteurs. Thank you, rapporteurs. You worked so hard, so we would like to give you an opportunity to be here all together and share the wonderful lessons. So I would like to start with actually session 1 on organizing, planning, and mobilizing for implementing the SDGs. And we will hear about mobilizing public servants and transforming mindsets, advancing a curriculum on the SDGs. And I have the pleasure to give the floor to Dr. Xue.
Now I have high pressure of making this reporting because I think I only have 3 minutes. First of all, I think that we had a really wonderful experience, exchange of excellent experiences from Bangladesh, from Bhutan, from UNITAR C4, Tsinghua, TERI, and KDI. So I think we were all very, very much impressed with the rich wealth of resources out there in the field, and also the diversity of the modality. The diversity of modality and the content, orientation, and also the way how they're organized. So I think that actually, it's very difficult to convey that richness and the excellent, resources out there. But I'm sure that those presentations can be shared. I think then there's also a general agreement that there's a need to move to the next generation of training programs for SDG. I think those are based on previous experiences, but there's a need to have some also transformative change. So I think there are some ideas being discussed. One is that there's probably a need to have a platform for sharing those resources. So I think that's the first one. And the second one is to have some sort of a gap assessment to not just, I mean, many of us are here that's involved in, on the supply side, but we also need to think about the demand side to see what's the demand out there and to see what the supply, can meet, to what degree can meet those demands. And so what's the gap and how do we fill those gaps? And the third, I think there's also, some discussion about the probably a sort of dual approach. On the one hand, we need to develop some sort of more, general sort of, conceptual framework in, mainstreaming sort of the SDG ideas and the concepts into the public administration, teaching and training. But also we need some more sort of topical modules that's really in high demand. For example, in terms of in policy assessment and in some other kind of tools. And then finally, that also there's a need to think about sort of impact assessment, because often that we do this training, but without really looking at what's really the sort of learning outcome, how that really impacts the experiences. And so I think that's really in a nutshell are some of the basic ideas that we've talked about and shared. And also I think that there was also implicitly, I think there was some idea there might be a need for some sort of ad hoc groups of, based on this discussion to follow through. Because I think that there's a meeting sometime next June. And so I think that maybe there could be some follow-up activities, through that kind of mechanism. Let me stop here.
Thank you very much, Professor Xu, for this very concise but meaningful elaboration of the key messages. In fact, we will have the 2018 United Nations Public Service Forum, which will take place in the Kingdom of Morocco from 21 to 23rd June. So I would like all of you also to save the date, and if you are interested in participating, please do contact us. And that will be an opportunity to have perhaps a side event or a special meeting to launch some elements of a framework or maybe a pilot module. So we would like to continue to work in preparation for that event in June, starting now and in January, so that there is something that we could share and pilot, maybe even there. So thank you very much. I will now move to our second rapporteur, for Group 2, which was on spearheading whole-of-government approaches and policy integration. I would like to ask Mr. Tiokorda Gadebudi Kusuma to please deliver his remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, in this group session, we divided into two groups as very dynamic discussion, and mostly speaking, we found that all of SDGs targets are easy to align with the government's policy, because from the 70 target, it actually can be mapped to business as usual in your government, in every government country. However, every country is unique. Thus, to get the integration of SDGs into their national strategy, we conclude that every country needs to, first, ensure political leadership of policy and implementation at the national and local levels. We can see that if there is no political will, it's really hard to integrate an SDGs into the national strategy. So, from the discussion, we assure that the need of the official planning and encourage civil servants to use the whole of government approach. So what the difference is how to breaking the silo, because they usually work on the silo with the ministerial level, only focus on no poverty or no hunger, but by raise the awareness about how SDG is indivisible, interlinked within any goals. So we think that the effort to raise the awareness of SDG for civil servant and the local government could be effective to change their mindset and how they need to work more in collaborative and use cross-cutting ways of thinking. We also noticed that ensuring that the local government and the civil society have to be well aware about the SDGs, because in the implementation level, even you have a strong commitment on the policy, but the local government is the one who directly give the service to our citizens. That's why the awareness should be goes till the local level. And the second, every country can choose the most appropriate goal where the focus is needed. As you see, every country have a different level of development. So from the discussion, we found that poverty reduction is still the main theme of some countries. So we suggest that the poverty reduction can be chosen as a central theme and start to interlink this goal with other goals that can be support each other. And there's another discussion about what to be focused. There's the need for the country to verify and check whether the international trade is truly included in SDG to promote development domestically. I think it's more like how we make the country position to link with the global international trade. Because sometimes if we not be careful, the gap of Gini ratio will be more higher, because when you attach to the international trade, mostly the capital will, more advanced, but you have to ensure that please verify and check in your country situation and ensure that when you engage with the international trade, your local community still can be aligned with the development. And the last one, the country need to be aware about the inherent risk when they use ICT. There's a lot of debate about should we do everything online from the e-governments and everything, but there's always an inherent risk. When the pro side, we can harnessing the open source like we see today, when the UK create an open source and you can easily modify and customize based on your government need. And there's also, if you use ICT and well, you can establish co-creation. But the contra, there's not a lot of now like a fake info, digital divide between your citizen, they arguing with based on the fact on the social media, and there's also an issue about the abuse of the internet platform for doing something bad, like terrorism or so. On the contrary, the government itself have to be aware when they decide to use the ICT. This kind of contra need to be scrutinized and make like an effort to minimize the negative impact of that. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for these very good remarks, and especially putting focus on poverty eradication, which is the overarching goal of the 2030 agenda, and how to link this to all the other goals, and also the issues of security preparedness before embarking on ICT initiatives. So I would now like to call our next speaker on engaging all stakeholders in SDG implementation, Mr. Orabun.
Okay, on behalf of the Group 3. So actually in Group 3, I would say that it is very honor for us. In the session, we learned very inspiring success stories, from actually it is about the developing the Green Chandigarh, the happiest city in India, from Honorable Major Madam Asa Kumari, and also the session also learned about the Legazpi, the most natural hazardous but resilient city in the Philippines. From Honorable Major Mr. Noel Rosan. I think that's a really inspiring success story that we learned in the session. After that, the session also received valuable guidelines from on the participatory approach from Ms. Hee-jae Yo from the Korea Top Facilitation Center. After that, the session broke into 4 discussion groups. And then the discussion group have shared, we share a lot of experience in different countries. And especially on the participatory approach, the coordination, and all the groups seem to agree that the key element for successful participation is to have the effective coordination. That is really important. But coordination is really, really difficult. One of the most difficult part to do. And the groups also show that some countries already have the legal framework and the formal coordinating platform. Some countries only have the voluntary platform. But at the end of the day, we all agree that the key successful to have effective coordination is to have competent leadership. It is really, really important. Competent leadership. Only having competent leadership that you can ensure that you will have the effective coordination, and that you can identify all the stakeholders. You can bring all the stakeholders together. You can share, the stakeholders can share together and work together. And only by doing that we can ensure that there will be no one left behind. Yeah, thank you.
For pointing out these very important key messages, one of which is about institutionalizing participatory mechanisms to ensure that there is effective coordination. And then the second point that is extremely important is about competent, and perhaps we could add transformational leadership that listens, engages all stakeholders and empowers them. So we will now proceed to our third group. To session 2. So session 2 was on localizing the SDGs, enhancing cooperation between central and local governments, and equipping institutions. We will now hear the key messages on localizing the SDGs from Ms. Erice Altea Ea Antonio.
Hi, good afternoon. So for localizing the SDGs, we've come up with 5 points. First is to mainstream the SDGs and to raise awareness. We should do it in all levels of the government and across all sectors. And that means that we should do it in a targeted approach based on the sectors that we're talking to, that we're engaging with. Next is to contextualize the SDGs in local communities in terms of integrating it to national plans and prioritizing the needs of the people. Also, third, to build the capacity in all levels and in all sectors in terms of finances, resources, knowledge, and skills of the people and the institutions that we're dealing with. And also to strengthen the stakeholder partnerships that we have to establish their ownership and accountability to these goals and targets and even indicators. And also lastly, that we should also work on fiscal decentralization and effective monitoring and data disaggregation. That's all for our group. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very concise but powerful messages. Especially the idea of building capacities in all sectors and at all levels. I think that's extremely important. So not just government, but private sector, civil society, and at all different levels. Our next rapporteur will talk about resources allocation between national and local governments. And I would like to invite Mr. Redempto Parafina to deliver his remarks.
Hello, good afternoon. Do I still have my co-members here from the same group? Raise your hand. Okay, there I see. See them. Okay. Our group our group's insights into the local national resource allocation dynamics could be synthesized into one recommendation only. And this is predicated on two assumptions. Number one, that there is already appreciation of the need for budget and resources for SDG work that has been seen in many country cases. And second, that the local actors are actually the frontline actors in the service delivery. So having said that, having said these two predicates, our recommendation is to emphasize local representation in national venues for priority setting and budget allocation. So two things, there are already mechanisms, there are already committees that are being set up for priority setting. Let's make sure that there is local representation there. We are already setting or allocating some budget. Let us make sure that there is significant share of the local from that budget. We just have one caveat, and that is that this setup of prioritizing locals should not fall into the trap of the generic or equal distribution of financing, because it will still be a need on need basis. Second, it is also necessary to point out that even though we are trying to decentralize, it still has to be anchored on the national design or agenda of the country. It is also important to point out that we are suggesting this, or we are making this recommendation emphasizing local representation because it ensures grounded appreciation of needs, and there has to be, or it will result in high level of ownership of the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that good summary and highlighting how it's in both national and local levels are important, and how local actors are at the forefront of the SDGs, and how it's important that they be included at the national level in various mechanisms, but at the same time that the national level and decentralization is anchored on the national design of a country. And I thought those were very good. I was in that group, so thank you very much. The next group is making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. And I would like to invite Dr. Mohammed Ijas to summarize the key messages, please.
I think I'm honored to have been being a rapporteur for a group with a very diverse background, academics, parliamentarians, and graduate students, and implementers. So such a mix of knowledge and experience. I think we came up with a very good findings. I think this is the more challenging sustainable development goal. If you take the city development, all other SDG goals are interrelated. I think strong organizations and environment. So this is a quite challenging area. So the entire group work on this area. We found there are quite a number of challenges. Where the migration, the population growth is number one. We found that, and I will just read it out. Even the most sophisticated cities, they find it, the data is quite hard to find reliable data. And from a third world country point of view, the social tensions within cities, for example, in developing country, you get a different social strata, high end to low end. It's quite a challenge when it comes to solid waste management. And another factor, funding infrastructure development. Capital investment is another challenge when it comes to the developing country. And another factor which is very important, knowledge gap. As I mentioned, you get strata. It may be between urban and rural, and even between developed and developing countries. So when we formulate policies, we have to consider about these factors. And capacity building and the ever-evolving technology is another factor that we found it's quite challenging. And another quite interesting example, I would say. So there are cities, they promote bicycles. For example, Copenhagen. One presenter mentioned that we should promote Copenhagen strategy. So I have another observation. Of course, in Belgium and Netherlands, prime ministers goes in bicycles. But when it comes to the Asian country, if the prime minister goes in a bicycle, the society will look at it different. So that point I pointed out because of you have to think about the context. When you're making policies, you have to think about the context and other development challenges. And the learning points we came about, and being a diverse group, most of the group members believe that doing business as usual no more effective, and we understand the strong leadership and strong institution and the good governance are key factors, and people-centered policy making, and policies and strategies should be based on the context. So if we are trying to promote smart cities in the developed countries, you need a lot of resources. That is not practical. For example, I give an example. There were two study tours. One was smart city observation, and the other was solid waste management. In fact, I was quite prepared to go for the second. Why? I can't apply that smart city concept in my local authority at the moment, but it may be feasible in future. And having identified that learning point, we should have a striking balance between the technology and the human systems. So if I put into context, you can have one in the continuum, you have one in technology, the other one in human approach. Use of modern technology, you should be consider, and you have to consider about the human development aspect. We do have a lot of knowledge, but we are lacking in execution. And most importantly, some people we don't realize intangible outcomes. So when it comes to smart cities, you have to consider about the public health. For example, mental health. So those are intangible outcomes. And disaster management should be local driven, not the tailor-made one. And more interestingly, one young presenter was there, and not only young presenter, even the academic promoted that we should utilize the youth knowledge to make cities resilient. And in fact, I had a good definition. I don't know whether the presentation can have it. There are so many definitions for the smart cities. The last slide, do we have a presentation? The last slide. I think it brings a very strong message. If I can have it, very good. Anyway, I will read it out. There were so many definitions for the smart cities. Actually, the one strikes me a lot. It is British Standard Institute definition. It says, smart cities is a term denoting the effective integration of physical, digital and human systems in the built environment to deliver sustainable, prosperous and inclusive future of its citizens. So you can promote bicycle, and you are promoting the public health. Non-communicable diseases are, you can address it. And another picture, you can have a bus, and even you can have a bicycle. That is the message from our group. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your summary and highlighting these important points, including that we should always remember technology is at the service of people and how human development is extremely important, and then to see how we can use technology for that. The issues of context, which are very important, and then the need to build capacity for execution, because there is a lot in planning, designing, but then when it comes to implementation, that's where there is more need for capacity building. So I would now like to call upon our next speaker, Who will deliver the key messages of the group? Oh, sorry, I would have to provide the name of the session, which is session 3, improving public service delivery and promoting inclusion through innovation and ICTs. And group 1 was on improved access to public services through national ID management. And I would like to ask Ms. Jennifer Tan to deliver her remarks.
Okay, so our group discussed a very specific topic, actually, national ID management. It's very, very specific, and how having a national ID will help to improve access to public services. We had sharings by myself on our Singapore experience, and Mr. Chris Kang on how Korea implements that national ID, as well as a colleague from Nepal. We all have different stages of implementation. And in the discussion, all of us agreed that actually having a national ID will be key to providing access to a lot of services, public services, such as healthcare, education, employment, banking, social security, even down to voting. Members shared about how if you didn't have a national ID, even running an election and voting was very difficult because you couldn't really confirm whether someone had already voted or they may have voted multiple times, and you couldn't pinpoint it down. So the group agreed that having a national ID system was key to inclusiveness and to contributing to the SDGs in terms of things like eradicating poverty, providing for good health care, providing quality education. However, it looks like it's not that straightforward to implement a national ID because in some countries there are various agencies who are involved in that. So a participant from Pakistan, for example, talked about how he had a paper ID, but if he had to do something, he had to get one agency to give him another paper, and it was quite inconvenient. So in our group discussions, we agreed that it would be good if there was one single institution which was responsible for implementing the national ID, and this should be done centrally, and then that political will was quite important to push it out, especially for countries which do not yet have it and have it in like maybe 40%, 50%. So they need to have a high political will to push it to 100%. Okay, then if we move towards implementing a national ID, it's important that the implementation be cost effective, be transparent, and that the security of the ID should be well maintained. Moving beyond a physical ID, we also talked about digital ID, and if you have a digital ID system, that's also key to implementation of a lot of digital government services. And if you implement a digital ID system, then it's important to be very careful about information security, and things like fraud, identity theft will have to be addressed. Okay, that's all.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, and for these 2 points. One, on having a single institution, and many countries are now pioneering with a single digital ID so that you can go through one portal and all your services with one ID. And then, of course, the issue of security, which is extremely important nowadays. So I will now ask our next rapporteur to deliver remarks on multi-channel service delivery, improving the delivery of services for vulnerable groups. And I would like to invite Ms. Gurley Grace Casimiro Iktiben to deliver her remarks, please.
For our group, we had a very good knowledge exchange on the best practices of different countries and the non-government organizations on multi-service delivery channels. First takeaway is that for the vulnerable definition, we deemed it necessary to include the geographically hard-to-reach people, those who have vulnerability due to identity, like the indigenous peoples,
the LGBTIs and those included in the religious minorities. We also deemed it necessary to include those who are exposed to risks, such as those with HIV and AIDS, those that are in the disaster-prone communities, and also those in the under poverty level people. Second takeaway is that to make the multi-channel service delivery more responsive and efficient, we need to make use of ICT that are PWD friendly or disability friendly and elderly friendly. Second, there should be a use of local dialects. Third is that there should, in case there's no access to ICT, there should be the use of community centers and use of volunteers to reach out to the vulnerable, and we should have a common sharing platform so that all stakeholders could contribute to reaching the vulnerable. Third takeaway is that in order for us to improve public services, there should be policies on collaboration of all stakeholders like different ministries, national and central government, public and private partnerships, non-government organization and civil society organizations partnership. Second, there should be an emphasis on rights-based approach to social protection, delivery of services. There should also be universal targeting in terms of providing these services. There should also be financial assistance and better subsidies. Essential infrastructure should also be put in place. And also there should be what they call a one-door policy to avoid duplication of services. So in summary, we deemed it very important to provide multi-channel service delivery to the vulnerable because leaving no one behind means leaving no vulnerable behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for highlighting these key messages, and in particular the issue of partnerships, which is very important, and social protection systems to reach all the vulnerable groups. And I was in that session as well, so it was a fantastic session because we looked at all different vulnerable groups, from older persons to youth to migrants and others, and so it was quite inspiring for me, I have to say. So our last group is on improved financial inclusion for vulnerable groups, and I would like to invite our rapporteur to provide her remarks. Ms. Erice Altea Ea Antonio, please.
So for staying true to leaving no one behind, we talked about financial inclusion for the vulnerable groups, and this is just to stress, this is very much specified, especially on goal number 8, specifically targets 8.3 and 8.10. And just to read, on 8.10 it says, strengthen the capacity of domestic financial institutions to encourage and expand access to banking, insurance, and financial services for all. And also this includes the number of commercial banks and ATMs, etc., and the number of people who has access and has actual bank accounts. So with our group, several takeaways aside from access to financial services. It's also important that we devise relevant financial services to the vulnerable groups depending on what they need, and also to lower cost, also to digitize transactions. But as we digitize transactions, capacity building is very important, not just financial literacy, but even more so digital literacy, so that everyone would know how to best access and best use this digital platforms, especially as it comes with a lot of risks, as mentioned earlier. And that we also have to address social needs and financial literacy, entrepreneurial trainings, etc. And also on data aggregation, data reporting, we have to also acknowledge informal banking sectors. We also have to acknowledge cooperatives, for example. And we also have to look into the best ways to involve the private sector, as discussed in the past plenary sessions. How do we engage the private sectors in such a way that we go beyond project grants and more into having programs that are self-sustaining? And lastly, there are some floating questions that remains to be answered. First is, how do we finance the achievement of the SDGs in the macro and global scale? And lastly, how do we provide banking for the stateless people and for the migrants, for example? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your summary, and Goal 17 actually puts emphasis on how to unlock and engage, the private sector, the potential of the private sector to contribute to well-being and prosperity for all. So I think moving forward, this is going to be a debate to be continued because it's extremely important. And we've had many contributions throughout these 3 days. So I would like to invite all of you, please, to join me in a very warm round of applause for our rapporteur. I think that it was not easy in 3 minutes, to capture discussions of hours and hours. So we are very grateful to all of you. And before we move on to the next session, I just wanted to give the floor to anyone in the audience that has participated in these groups to highlight a burning idea, issue, recommendation that they feel was not covered by our rapporteurs, although they did a very meticulous job, but maybe there is something that you wish to share with all of us. Any burning idea or issue? No, so our rapporteurs were wonderful. Another warm round of applause. Thank you very, very much. So I would now like to invite our kind speakers to rejoin their tables, except for Dr. Xue. And we will now proceed with our second session. And this session is about partnerships and building partnerships and learning more about what specific institutions are doing and how these institutions can offer support. And support can come in the form of ideas, knowledge, capacity development initiatives, networks. So we will hear from a host of institutions, and after that we will have interactive sessions and dialogues at your tables. And partnerships, as you know, of course, is extremely important. It's part of Goal 17 as much as capacity development. So I would like to now give the floor to Dr. Lan Xue, who is the Dean of School of Public Policy and Management, to provide a presentation, brief presentation, 5 minutes perhaps? 5 minutes, yes, thank you.
Okay, so let me just have a very brief introduction of our school and what we can actually do in terms of collaborate with our colleagues here. First of all, I think a very brief introduction of Tsinghua University, founded in 1911, and now is a comprehensive university with 46,000 students. I think on various kind of a global scale. In terms of ranking, I think we're very proud that this year we are ranked as #1 in engineering. And our school was founded in the year 2000, and we now have 3 international programs, 3 master's degree programs taught in English, and also we were the first one that outside the U.S. That was accredited by the ASPA, the global network of MPA programs. And currently we have over 50 full-time faculty members, and a bit more than half of them are trained overseas and from all the leading universities. And also, about half of them are trained domestically. So we have a very nice balance of international and versus domestic experiences in various disciplines. And also, we have, in terms of our degree programs, we have we are a graduate school, so it's mostly graduate degrees, and we have 3 international, 3 master's degrees taught in English, and also doctorate degree programs, and also MPA, Chinese MPA programs. The 3 master's degree programs in English, the first one is MID that we started in 2007. And so this is a 2-year master's degree program that now we are transitioning this program into the dual degree program with University of Geneva. So this will be turned into a 2.5-year dual degree program. The second program is IMPA program. This is fully funded by the Chinese government. So this is a 1-year mid-career government official program. So it's open to all applicants from developing countries, and it's a bit like the Mason program at Kennedy School. So this is the second international program. The third one is a 2-year master's degree program in international development and governance. Again, this is fully supported by the Chinese government. It's again also open to all applicants from developing countries. And we also have a executive training center provide short-term training in various subjects. Some in the core elements, core modules in public administration skills. Others on very critical sort of topical issues. And also we have the school is a platform of over now probably 18 research institutes that's in partnership with many government agencies and international institutions. For example, we have a joint center with the Brookings Institution on public policy analysis. And so all our faculty are working on many of those areas that's listed here. And so we also have participated in various national policy discussions and international policy discussions. Those are some of the pictures. The first one is myself in discussion with our Premier Li Keqiang in one of the economic policy consultation meetings. And the next, the one below is that one of our faculty members co-chaired the session with Hillary Clinton, quite a few years ago when she was the Secretary of State. So I think that's our faculties are quite active in various kind of policy forums. And again, the Institute for Sustainable Development, I think we are the institution in doing the work on SDGs, and so this is the focal point that link our school with other partners on the SDG issues. And so now we have many students and faculty members from all over the world. So we welcome any suggestions and the partnership with our colleagues here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Xu. That's impressive achievements of your university over the years, and also the programs, the networks with 18 research institutes, and now this Institute for Sustainable Development. So I think there's going to be a lot of room for discussion and building bridges among knowledge and ideas. So I would now like to invite our next speaker, Ms. Jennifer Tan. She's the Director, Government Technology Agency in Singapore, to share a little bit, what she's doing and what types of collaboration there could be or partnerships in the future. Thank you.
So we in GovTech, we would like to propose to host an executive development course in April 2018. It's going to cover digital government for transformation towards sustainable development and resilient societies, and based on our Singapore experience. So just to talk a little bit more, on the first day, Mr. Chang from UNPOG talked about how they did this UN capacity needs assessment, and a few points that arose from that presentation. Various countries have indicated a need for capacity development training, for tools for capacity development, and wanted to have knowledge exchange. And the priority topics that were identified included innovative public service delivery and ICTs for development. So together, I just want to say that we in Singapore are very open to sharing, and we have along had many capacity development programs for various countries and in collaboration with UN. So for this specific issue of innovative ICTs, we would like to propose a course in early April 2018, which is in collaboration with UNPOG and DPADM. This is targeted at directors and above from the public sector, senior officers from SIDs, DS and LDCS. We're going to keep it like really small, 30 participants overall, so that there's a lot of knowledge exchange, info sharing about experiences. And it's not a technical course, okay? So it's not for IT professional people. It's actually for policymakers and people who are in charge of transforming or implementing digital government. Okay, so maybe just to share a little bit more about the Singapore experience and how we've come through all our years. And in the 1980s, we did automation of data processes and systems, and that was our approach towards e-government. And then in the 2000s, we moved towards like, hey, we have to have services online. So we have more than 90% of our services online. And then in the past decade or so, we looked at integrated service delivery, breaking down of agency silos. And then since about 2 years ago, we're looking at digitalization, disruption, transformation. So if I could just say that our philosophy is that smart nation, this whole concept of having a smart nation, about digitalization, is really about improving the lives of our people and how technology can help us and how we can galvanize communities. And we have these 3 areas that we think about, you know, that it should bring about better living, it should bring about livelihood, more opportunities, and it should bring about stronger communities. You know, the danger of technology is that then we all hide behind our computers and our smartphones, and we don't actually interact in real life. So how can technology facilitate better communities? And we see that our work in digital government is fully aligned to all the SDGs. If I could just talk a little bit about that, you know, in the areas of better living, we see how technology can lead to better health. And when we say better health, it's not just better health care, but in bringing about health for the people, in preventing them having to go into the hospital. So how can technology encourage people to live healthily, do exercise, eat healthy food, you know, rather than, and if they have to go to the hospital, of course, then, you know, all technology can support that as well in terms of better health information, health records. We talk about, of course, digital inclusion, leaving no one behind is even more important in the digital age. We talk about doing more with less, you know, reusability. How can we be more efficient and effective in our use of resources? And technology has a big role to play in that. And the power of anticipation, using technology to anticipate what our citizens need, even if they didn't even know it themselves. Okay, and then in terms of providing more opportunities, technology can help in reaching out, providing quality education, ensuring that educational resources are optimized across all the school children. So it doesn't matter which school you're in, you know, your teachers and your students have access to the best educational resources that's available in the country. Infrastructure, I think yesterday I shared about our digital ID, National Digital ID, and that's one of the key infrastructure we see behind having a digital society. And then digital industry, it's not just the government, the infocom industry and all the other industries in the economy also have to move towards digitalization. Stronger communities, we see having digital government platforms as also platforms that can reach out to community and galvanize them towards social causes, towards providing ideas that can improve the government. Okay, and then how do we do it? Our digital government experience is government as a platform. We believe a lot in design thinking as well. User experience in how we design the e-services so that it's easily reachable to the citizens, having capabilities to do it on our own. So it's not just about hiring a consultant and getting a consultant to implement it, because that's just paying money to a consultant. You actually need some capability to do architecture and think through how you want to design all your services. And then data and governance are very important in the digital age. So our course, we are proposing it to be 5 days. This is just a quick snapshot of what it looks like. this is like every morning we will have policy discussions, and we are structured it in various themes. So the first day is on policy development, e-government strategy, how that supports the SDGs. And then second day is on infrastructure. You need a good infrastructure that can undergird your implementation. And then smart nation, how we look at our national digital identity and what we are doing in the open data and data science space. And then digital economy, going beyond just the government. And of course, leaving no one behind. And then the second part of the day is usually site visit to some where we can, have a look and see, show and tell kind of thing. So for the first day, we'll show you, we'll discuss about institutional arrangements behind e-government, and then we will look at our implementation of digital services in Singapore, and then we also have joint programs with UNPOG. Yeah, okay. So that's all I have. Justin will be our key at that point, and feel free to also give us any comments you have. We don't want it to be from our perspective. I mean, this is a program that we will deliver ourselves. So if you have any suggestions or comments or anything that you think will be useful, then feel free to let us know, and we will make the necessary adjustments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, for this generous offer to customize actually the executive education training course, because I think it's very important after dialogue, with whoever is interested, then to kind of adapt it to different needs. That's very important. And also the focus of Singapore on better living and stronger communities. So how, ICT is actually used for that, and that is always the focus. And I was privileged and honored to listen to how ICT is supporting the life of families in Singapore, because Jennifer came to New York a few weeks ago, I think, and brought us through how it is to live in Singapore, what are the different types of services are being built around the needs of people. So it's really from outside in, and that's how they build their services. And I think that's a valuable lesson. Thank you, Jennifer. So our next speaker is Ms. Hyunjen Byun, Executive Principal, Department of Global ICT Cooperation from the Korea National Information Society Agency. And she will also provide some information about possible partnerships and collaboration. The floor is yours.
I think you guys had a really great time last 4 days about sharing knowledge about how to promote the building impact for accountable and inclusive institution and public administration. And this presentation is that how Korea can help, or what you also in your last day discussion is about how to take advantage of ICT when developing your countries. And my agency has 30 years of the experience that developing Korea ICT and e-government. So there's some program I can share with you, and there might be you are interested. Our vision, about my company vision is world best specialized ICT agencies, and so with those mission, we developed Korea ICT and infrastructure things and e-government things. So now currently we are formulating Korea ICT plan strategy and promote application of ICBM like fourth industrial revolution things, and also we promoting that how we making the more friendly and more ICT environment for the vulnerables, and build foundation for sturdy for future ICT infrastructures. Also, we launch for the carrying out global cooperation project through ICT. So those programs that we currently provide, we share with our partner countries. First one is the e-government cooperation center and IT, or sometimes we call it IT cooperation centers and e-government cooperation centers. but it's pretty similar. And the other one is the Information Access Center and Korea ICT Learning Program, and Korea ICT Volunteers and Global Academy. The first one is the IT Cooperation Center. Previously I said that there's e-government cooperation center and IT Cooperation Center. Those are we are making the platform in partner countries for the cooperating ICT in their countries. So previously we have the cooperation centers in Mexico, Chile, Turkey, and so on. And currently there are the ICT cooperation center in Belarus and Brazil, and also e-government cooperation center in Kenya, Peru, and Indonesia. Those centers are usually run duration of 3 years, and those are matching fund program that we donate $1 million for 3 years and in cash, and the other partner countries donate the $1 million in kind. So the cooperation frameworks like this. Korea government provides expenses for dispatched experts and joint project to strengthen ICT cooperation with the partner countries. And the partner country provide office facilities and maintenance and local personnel required for operating the centers. So in this center, we launch for the joint ICT project, and also we provide some ICT consulting service, and also there is some human resource exchange of Korea. Experts goes to the partner country, and partner country comes to the Korea, and there's some cooperation projects run through for 3 years. And the other one is the Information Access Center. This one is the one of the ODA program provided by Korea government. So the one who are remote or kind of isolated areas which are very hard to use ICT or internet facilities, we build ICT facilities, and those facilities are run as a platform to there's training program provided there, and there's some Korea cultural exchange things that provide in that area. Those are also we build over 50 IAC in over 45 countries. And the other one is pretty similar that the one the Singapore delegation told us previously. This one is Korea ICT Learning Program. It's also all financed by the Korean government, and we invite the policy makers or experts from the partner countries. Those are usually runs on a regular basis, twice a year, but sometimes it runs on a request basis. So we over the 4,000 policymakers comes to Korea and learns about how Korea developed Korea ICT and e-governance. And the other one is ICT volunteers things. Those are the short-term program that we dispatch as Korean university students during their vacation time to the countries. So they are providing some IT training courses to the person there, and there's some cultural exchange things also run by them. And the last one is e-government Global Academy. E-government Global Academy is currently now in Jeju Island, beautiful island in southern parts of Korea. And there is there is a special facilities to provide Korea ICT and e-government education there. So there is usually 1 week or 2 weeks short-term program runs for the developing country officials that to share how we developed our Korea e-government during last 30 years. So those ones who are interested in to share about or learn about Korea, how Korea take advantage of ICT when they developing our Korean economy, then maybe you can have, there is a one option that you can consider that there's many programs provided further we want to share with other countries.
Thank you very much for providing this host of examples of ways in which you are sharing your knowledge, your experience with other countries. It's truly impressive. Thank you very much. We now have other 3 speakers, and we're running a little bit behind time, so I would like to ask the next 3 speakers to please keep to your 5 minutes if possible, so then we can have some interaction discussions at the tables. I wish to invite Mr. Shaleen Singhal, Associate Professor, Department of Energy and Environment from Tare University, to join us on stage.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon. And I would like to put forward 5 points in these 5 minutes that the Chair has graciously allocated. And my first point is, coming back to the theme of the symposium, is that to build effective, accountable and inclusive institutions, we do gather, and we have gathered enough confidence that we need to move beyond sensitization and awareness on SDGs. And that actually has to take the shape of formal process of knowledge and capacity building enabled through the higher education framework. And for that, my first point here to be on the floor is a proposal that I'm putting forward to UN DESA, along with other collaborating UN institutions, to look forward on creating an SDG academy. And at Tare University, Tare School of Advanced Studies is very much committed towards contributing for this process of creating an SDG academy. Fortunately, over the last few years, Tare School of Advanced Studies, if we can have the web page, has been already making a modest attempt in contribution towards this higher education framework. If we go into details of that later on, our tagline is Knowledge for Sustainable Development. We are actually focusing on postgraduate and PhD programs, and there are 13 postgraduate programs, of which one program is an MA program on public policy and sustainable development, mainly focused on the public policy administration mid-career civil servants. In this program, which is sponsored by the Government of India, one of the key features of that is a policy lab, which currently in its first year is focusing on the policy analysis and solutions for India. And we intend to take it and widen the scope at the SARC region level. Also to mention here that with the support of UNEP and EU in the last few months, Tare School of Advanced Studies has focused and developed a dedicated curriculum on sustainable consumption and production, the SDG 12. And this also based on the feedback from the participants from the government. We actually took it forward to be a more focused, another course which is on sustainable consumption and production in cities, titled as Sustainable Urbanization. Based on the learning that we have developed so far, we are not taking this experience to other countries. We have developed a course on SCP for the Lao PDR and are in the process of contributing to cities such as Bhutan, Sri Lanka, and in the region. Just to extend on that, kind of programs that Tare School of Advanced Studies has is ranging from sustainable development practice. These are all postgraduate programs aligned with one or more SDGs, such as climate science and policy, renewable energy and engineering management, business sustainability, and urban development and management, a program which I am more closely associated with, and so on and so forth. In addition to the PhD programs and the more focused and tailor-made capacity building programs that we organize. So one of the challenge that institutions like us face is that while we are responding to the existing market demand and need, but at the same time, the nature of the course itself creates a sort of challenge for us to actually create the market itself, because it's in a nascent stage of where you have the graduates coming with courses on sustainable development. That's something to share with others. My second point is that in the process of this transition that we are now into in achieving the SDGs, while we continue to focus on the goals, targets, and the measurable indicators, and this is more reiterating my point from the previous sessions, we do need to focus on intangibles, mainly to secure some of the tangible outcomes that we are aspiring for. And as an example, it is relating to, in the process of development and management, to focus on the indigenous culture. My third point, quickly, is that incremental change will not be sufficient enough in this entire process, and for any big impact goals to reach billions, it would require a breakthrough approach. I don't have any answers at this stage, but this is something that we can collectively brainstorm towards. My fourth point is that out of all the 17 goals that we have been discussing, we now parallelly also need to focus on the hotspots of and related to these goals, which means the areas on the sectors which demonstrate high potential for delta change. And again, or the sectors which are actually demonstrating unsustainable pathways towards sustainable development. As an example, I would again bring your attention to be focusing on cities. And my final point is on advocacy, that while we are focusing on financial inclusion as a process, that helps us bring in transparency and strength in our existing available financial resources. Very important parallel process is required, advocacy for additional finance to support the process and the institutions which are expected to contribute to achieving these SDGs. And this is a complementary strategy to the inclusive finance approach that we already have. Again, as an example, is upfront acknowledgement of the business sector as a key actor. And finally, I would like to close that while we are into the process of shared learning, I have actually learned a lot from this symposium, and particularly from the example that our host Korean case is. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being brief yet impactful, and for sharing with us all these wonderful initiatives, including your policy labs and courses on SDGs. Also, the idea of an SDG Academy is interesting. We would need to continue to brainstorm on that, but thank you again. Now we have our next speaker, Mr. Chan Hee-yoon. He's Deputy Director, Global Education and Cooperation Division of the Ministry of Personnel Management National Human Resources Development Institute of the Republic of Korea. The floor is yours.
Actually, I came here only this day, today, from my office. Even though I don't know the detailed discussions, but first, the primary purpose of my presence here now, just to quickly introduce our organization. Some of you already understand what the COTI, or the previous name is COTI, and then now the NHI. And then I would like to give some fresh ideas, share some ideas with you. Okay. This is the government structure. Let me skip this. We here in Korea, 1 million officials. Okay. At this moment, I think I have to talk about some HRD points. Okay. So in Korea, there are actually in the public sector many training institutes. Each government agency has its own training institute by two categories. For central government officials and then local government officials. But sometimes the programs are intermixed. And the NHI actually serves as kind of inter-agency training institute. So has lots of experience in developing some programs and distributing them to not only Korean officials, to foreign government officials. For example, here are some Malaysian officials with Malaysian government send their officials to NHI for 34 years. Every year, 3 groups. The competition is very high. So we have lots of experience providing programs to foreign government officials. And then for local government officials, there is also LOGODI. LOGODI serves as kind of inter-agency training institute for local government officials. But sometimes we share some online programs. This is the NHI's history. It was founded back in 1949, more recently split into 2 campuses. On the right side is Macheon campus, left side is Jincheon campus, bigger size, 100 kilometers south of Seoul. But when you are asked to which is better, then when you come to Macheon during the vernal season or autumnal season, you will choose right side Poto. Yeah, we just nowadays when it comes to the reform efforts, we focus on the contents or in the area of public values, leadership, global competence, national agenda. This kind of educational context can be closely associated with the implementation efforts for the of SDGs, I think. Then methodology is also very important. You may already know discussion, practice session, case studies, many different kinds of methodologies, and infrastructure. So this kind of, even though I introduce NHI to you, this kind of basic principles can be applied to developing some programs or curriculums for effectively implementing SDGs. Let me skip. This is the framework of the NHI's program. So actually, coincidentally, we emphasize the education on public service values and leadership and global competence, professional competence development. I think the 4 pillars of educational programs may be also very helpful to push ahead with the SDG goals, I think. This is NHI's programs. Yeah, let me skip. Global Net, we have a broad range of global network like this. On this slide, we can understand what kind of global network we have. Actually, around the world. About several weeks ago, we hosted a HR Leaders Forum in which officials from 18 countries get together and then talked about some technology for how to effectively address the future of the public sector HR. So I think when it comes to HRD on global level, I think values, without values can be likened to the spirit of human beings. Without values, meaningless. So we have common goals of common values, pursuing the making the better future of the global community. So to make the better future of the community, a global community, I think HRD and HRM may play a key role in pushing ahead with the goals. So, and at the same time, technology. Someone mentioned ICT. Technology, post-industrial revolution, will bring the more rapid change in global administrative environment. So, technology, and at the same time, also, as I said, mindset or values. So all 3 are combined, should be combined. And then the common factor still HRD. Yeah, HRD can develop many different kinds of programs. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And I want to remind you that all of these presentations are going to be available as we speak online on the UN Public Administration Development website. So thank you very much for putting the focus on values, mindsets, and of course technology as a tool, but really the key importance of values. And you were not here for our meeting on the first day, but it's as if you were there because we did discuss all of these issues. And thank you for providing us with this information about the various courses and programs on leadership, public values that you have been spearheading. I would now like to invite our last guest speaker, my colleague, Kaping Yao, and he's going to present briefly what UNPOG, our project office here in Korea, does. The floor is yours, Kaping.
So I will talk about the capacity development support for development for supporting SD implementation in the Asian Pacific. So I will talk about the vision and some guiding principles, and also what we aim to achieve, and also the country focus, the approach, and the partnership with other kind of international organizations, and also types of UNPOG capacity development activities. First on the vision and the guidance principles. Fortunately, last Friday, our Honorary Secretary General of the UN DESA was here, so he gave us a most updated vision and guiding principles for capacity development activities of our office. So firstly, we want to develop a long-term plan, not just a kind of, in addition, just a 1 year or 2 year program. We should have a long-term vision. Secondly, I mean, as this office is a part of the TPAM, we should align our work with the SDG 16. And also we should focus on governance, not just on national, but also on the local and the sectoral level. Because many countries, maybe national level governance is very sensitive, but the local and sectoral level governance is less sensitive. And also, we should do the capacity development activities in collaboration with other countries and also with other international organizations. So what we aim to achieve in a few years ahead. So meanwhile, we have to do some new research, new analysis. We want to inject such analysis in our capacity development activities to ensure that our capacity development activities can be also updated in pace with the demand and requirements from member states. So first one is about related to effectiveness. It relates to the follow dimensions about how to mobilize the national institutions for SDG implementation, such as ministries and supreme authority institutions and parliaments, and also ensuring that the policy integration, and also how to mobilize the local governments to implement SDGs, and also facilitate the launch of common endeavor that we just have already discussed among the public administration schools to train public servants to contribute to the SDG implementation. And secondly, it's about the areas about inclusiveness, especially the principle of leaving no one behind as a cross-cutting theme, you know, how to engage the people, and also the smart cities and the vulnerable people. And also the third area is about accountability, how to work together with supreme authority institutions and the parliaments, and also to promote accountability. And also there are some cross-cutting issues we have been doing for the past several years. One example is how to mobilize an ICT government for gender equality, and also how to strengthen the government innovation. So now I talk about the approach that, and also how do we conduct the capacity activities. We should try to adhere to the integrated and a holistic approach. So it means that we start with the research and use the outcome of the research and to design the capacity development program to ensure that our program can be customized and tailored to the needs of the developing countries. And also after this kind of capacity development activity, we should have some follow-up action to ensure that our capacity development activity impact can be measurable, can be tangible, and also can be, receive some feedback from countries and for the further improvement. And also we focus on those countries in special situations, especially the LDCs, the landlocked developing countries, and also smiling developing states. And also we work in close collaboration with our colleagues at headquarters, and also with the UN Office of Sustainable Development, which is also located in Yinchuan City. And also we work together with SGAP. Currently we are working together with the Social Development Division, and also IDD, the ICT and the Disaster Risk Reduction. And also we are aiming to work with other regional organizations such as ASEAN and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and also SAAC, SAC countries, the South Asia countries. And also we try to bring government officials from various ministries and institutions at government level, at the different government levels, to work together to build capacities. And also this kind of types of activities for capacity development to support the developing countries. One is that we can organize some study tours in Republic of Korea and also other Asian countries. For example, this year we received 2 study tours from Afghanistan, but this study tour was organized by the UNDP, the Afghanistan Country Office. And also 1 year ago, we also organized a study tour from Iraq. Yeah. And also we were going to develop some training modules and tools and also some online training courses. Yeah. We will organize some multi-country or national workshops based on our capacity development program that already designed. And also we have tried to promote the knowledge sharing through contributions to global and regional events, such as this year we organized 2 tracks during the UNPSA in the Netherlands. And although we are trying to improve our website and also which is also linked to the DPAD website to make sure that we can share the knowledge through this online portal. And also we're trying to facilitate the peer-to-peer learning. And also some brief preliminary thoughts about the next year's program, for the capacity development program. The first one event that we will organize a study tour in Sri Lanka for seeds. Currently, we have 6 countries will be joining this study tour, and also we are considering maybe the possibility of expanding the participation of the study tour up to the 30 government officials. And the second is that we were working together with the UN Office of Sustainable Development to organize a Mayors Forum. The third event, which the Singapore GovTech already just also advertised, yeah. So the program we co-organize this program together with GovTech, and also we co-design the program. And also, as Jennifer Tan just mentioned, that this program is also open to your requirements. So if you have any questions, you can also let us know how to make sure that the program can be better designed to better meet the needs. Yeah. It will happen in early April, this study tour. So the topic will be digital government for transformation towards building sustainable and resilient societies. The title is kind of match the theme of the 2018 High-Level Political Forum. We are also considering to organize 1 workshop on local governance during the UNPSA, which is going to be held in Morocco on June 22nd and to 23rd. And also build our existing projects that we work together with the SCAP, the EPDM, on talking on SCAP. We already developed a 3-year program project and how to use ICT and e-government for promoting women's empowerment. So based on this kind of project, some training toolkits we already developed. We are considering to organize some national workshop or some multi-country workshops. And also in October, this hosting country, the Ministry of Interior and Safety, they will organize a very big event. It's an Asian Pacific Conference on Open Government Partnership in October. Our office is also considering to working together with them to organize the one-side event on transparency and accountability. Because the open government data, open government is also focusing on this transparency and accountability. In December, we'll organize a similar symposium on this scale, maybe, so on strengthening local government and coordination between national and local governments for the SDGs. So finally, because the Chinese government has a so-called World Internet Conference, which is an annual event, it's a very big scale, and it discusses the kind of emerging technologies and also its application, its impact on the public service delivery. So we are also continuing to organize one such event during that period. Yeah. So thank you. If there are any questions, you can refer to the website or send an email to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kaping. Indeed, We value partnerships, and we think that the way forward is working as one. So we are also breaking silos in the UN. We are trying to work across divisions, departments, regional commissions, and this is the only way that we can really pull together all of our resources, knowledge, to the benefit of all member states. Now we will begin our second session, and this should be a very interactive session, so I will explain a little bit how it's going to work out. It's discussions at tables, and what we would like to do is to have each one of our presenters sit at one of the tables. Maybe Sarah, you can help us to make sure that we have one at each table. Yes? So that's the first step. The second step is that we have about, let's say, 40 minutes. And what we will do is that you will be able to choose which table you would like to join, to ask questions, information, build partnerships with those who have spoken. Or you could also join another table where there is no one and then discuss other types of partnerships as well. So you're not obliged only to these partnerships. This is just what some institutions were willing to share with us. I'm sure there are many more that partnership possibilities. And after 15 minutes, I will then ask you to join another table. So it's going to be, you will have a chance to talk to different people in different tables, ask questions. So it's kind of a generation idea, hands-on session. And before we do this, and as soon as Sarah is ready, Sarah is going to read some of the ideas from our Partnerships Corner. This can also jumpstart your discussions. She will let us know what types of capacities you're interested in terms of receiving support, but she will also look at what different institutions said they may be able to offer. And finally, she will also look at personal commitments and follow-up actions, because we believe that it's very important what we have been doing during these 3 days, but it's even more important that some key message or some key lesson learned could be used once you go back home, and that there may also be the opportunity for some follow-up action, even if it's a small one, but that it can contribute to advancing the SDGs in your own countries. So, Sarah, are you ready to report on the Partnerships Corner? Thank you.
So here is the corner, and today everybody has been completing partnership capacity support that they're interested in, so sort of the wants, and then the offers, capacity support that institutions can offer, as well as the personal commitments and follow-up actions. We had some really special requests or supports that people are interested in. For example, I'd like to note one that we had from, where is it? Here. We had a blank request on impact investing with no name, no country. So whoever did this one, please add your name and country. We had one here from, for international collaboration with other countries. That was from EPU. We had Dr. Kamaria Noruddin from Malaysia, technical assistance in data collection and analysis for the Sustainable Development Goals. Another one from Nauru on data collection and analysis. We also had requests for support in greater systems thinking. Capacity development on green growth, so related to many SDGs. We had a request from IPU on capacity building of members of parliaments and institutions of parliaments, so to ensure that parliaments are fit for purpose. From IPU, we also noted the review of legislation to ensure that they are fully aligned and in harmony with SDGs. So that one's really interesting. From Muan, Nepal, the Executive Director, Mr. Devkota, we had a request for orientation for the new mayors and deputy mayors in Nepal's new decentralization process. on SDGs. And on the offers, we had offers from Malaysia to offer their technical assistance on public-private partnerships for successful human capital initiatives. We had also an offer on social accountability tools to engage government from Dawn in the Philippines. We had an offer from Aflatoon on mobilization of youth and children in education. And we had one on the 2030 Youth Force who offers support on how to engage youth better in your planning. And then from India, we also had an offer on capacity building programs on the SDGs at Terry's School of Advanced Studies. Terry was here and has their table. In terms of the commitments and follow-up actions, we had Samuel from Nauru who committed to submitting his voluntary national review at the HLPF in 2019. Big commitment and amazing job. So can we give a round of applause for Nauru? And then also we have Miss Shumaya Shimu, who you may not know, but she is a famous actress in her native country, Bangladesh. And so she committed to share the concept of SDGs with her community through media. Mr. Gerald Paragas from the Philippines, he's committed to invite more representatives from fellow local governments across the country on the SDGs. From the Maldives, we have Mr. Aman Khalil, and he has committed to advise sectors on implementing best practices learned from this symposium and use the network built for his country's development on the SDGs. From the EPU in Malaysia, collaboration to collaborate between workforce agencies from other countries to make their agendas more successful. And Waltraud Ritter from Hong Kong to talk to governments more. In terms of, I can keep reading many more, but I invite you also. From Mr. Aslam Alam from Bangladesh, he said he realized that we are not doing enough. We must double our efforts. That's amazing too. So please, I invite you to come and read these because they are really insightful, very impressive. And please add more.
Yes, thank you very much, Sarah.